Hello, and welcome to tonight's Get In Tune. Sorry, I was a little thrown off by the countdown music. It seems StreamYard changed what their countdown music was, which, it's not going to be a big deal for me. As you guys know, I've been talking about leaving StreamYard in the next couple of weeks when my time expires because they want a lot more money. So I'll be moving to another platform. But that just threw me off. I'm sorry. Anyway, you guys, welcome to tonight's Get In Tune. I'm very excited for tonight's show. I have a great returning guest, super knowledgeable about comics, talented writer, funny guy. But before we get into that, let's just, do the regular pitches that I do. Remember, go on. I'm sorry if my computer keeps shaking here. Amazon.com, the Whimsical Whiz, the complete 2023 collection. I am currently working on the second book for 2024. It will collect all the Whiz strips from there, plus the whole like D&D adventure party. I've been doing some strips on them as well, so they'll be in there as an added bonus. Also off Amazon, or go to boldventurepress.com. You can get the Zorro books I worked on, one being Zorro's Exploits and the other being Zorro's Swordplay and Romance. And then finally, akidinacomic.com, newspaper just strictly full of comics where you can see the Whiz in there. 7 newspapers a year. Go sign up for it. It is awesome. It is actually one of my favorite newspapers now. I love when I get to receive my copies and get to go through them. I actually still have to read the latest issue of, cover to cover. But enough about that. Let's bring on tonight's guest. As I mentioned, he's a really funny guy. He's a comedian. He makes comics, though, as well. And he ran a successful Kickstarter for a book called Kill Stan, which we talked about on this show last year. And now issue 2 is up on Kickstarter, and we're going to hear all about it. And I'm sure more. So let's bring on, and let me make sure I do his name correctly, Deece Casilas. How'd I do?
You nailed it.
Awesome.
100%.
Thank you. That is pronouncing names and just words in general is like my major enemy in the English language.
Words are hard, man. It's and they're ever changing, and their meanings change, and definitions, and
exactly. And I'm terrible at all of it. That's why I sit alone and draw in a studio. No one could. I don't have to talk to people.
That's one way to combat it. Yeah.
Except I chose to do a weekly show, so I kind of shot myself in the foot there.
You got to come out of the hole every now and then,
Yeah. And before we begin, to my audience, I just want to apologize if you hear anything in my voice or I start coughing. I am still getting over a sinus infection.
You got that bird flu measles combo.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
Well, I'm staying away from eggs right now, so I don't think I got the bird flu right now.
Well, you never know. A lot of pigeons out there in New York. Those things are everywhere.
That is true. Anyway, so how have you been?
I've been good, man. Staying busy. Yeah, the first comic book is still going gangbusters. Second issue running the Kickstarter and is about to release in a couple weeks here. And yeah, comedy tour cranking back up now that I've got kind of the comic book thing stabilized a little bit. So it's been, nothing like having 10 jobs at once.
Yeah. I mean, but listen, you're keeping busy and you're doing great stuff,
Thank you.
Last time you were on, I got to be honest, I don't know if I'm looking at the same background, but I am getting a little jealous of all the boxes of comics you have.
Oh, man, hold on. Let me I'm gonna do a whole pan for you because it's gonna go even further. Goes all the way around. Those are all trade paperbacks, but that's about somewhere in the realm of 30,000 individual comic books. So
Oh my God, that you just showed me what heaven looks like. It's before I got married, I had 30 boxes of comics,
yeah,
and I knew that I wasn't going to fit them all, so I had to learn to part with them.
yeah,
And I wasn't too upset, but every now and then I look back and I'm like, oh, I want to pull out that issue, and I know I either sold it
darn,
or I
yeah,
donated it or something. I came to my marriage with 6 boxes, and now I probably need about 2 more,
yeah,
based on what I've purchased. But yeah, I'm getting it to the point where I can't even hold trades, and that's what I keep looking for, are trades of a lot of the stuff I sold.
yeah,
Because the way I look at comics. I mean, when I was younger, yeah, there was a collection, and it was it was a very collectible thing for me. As I started getting more and more into the business, I realized they're just for fun. I don't need the collection,
yeah,
especially after I read them. I've enjoyed them. Let someone else enjoy them. But there are certain key books that I can't part with,
yeah.
obviously.
Well, listen,
Um,
don't spread that misinformation to my girlfriend. She can't know that I can ever give any of these away or sell them, because that
I,
would, we need to keep that on the down low, Mike. I can't. Yeah, we're actually in the we're in the next year or so. We've been looking at a bigger piece of property, and um, maybe building a house, or updating an older house that's on a piece of property. We just want a little bit of land
yeah,
outside of the city. And I've been designing what is going to be my comic book museum on this piece of property. And she's like, yeah, because I told her I wanted like a separate structure from the house, something close to the house, but like a separate, where I can
yeah,
have
yeah.
an audio studio and all this whole in the comic book museum. She's like, what do you, something like 500 square feet? And I'm like, 500 square feet. So that is adorable. I go, 500 square feet will be the entrance to that thing. I go, yeah, I'm talking about something that's probably like, I don't know, like 2,000 square feet. I mean, I'm gonna build, and it'll be a shell mostly. I mean, not until just like 4 walls, but and I'm gonna build a custom rack in the middle where I can put all the books in. I can, people can look. I can look through them. People can look through them all at waist level. I've got a whole wall of slabs. I'm gonna put a. It's a whole thing, man. I've got it designed. I've been putting it on paper. So one day, and like in 2 years, I'm gonna send you some pictures, and you're gonna think this is nothing.
Nothing. I'm gonna have to come out and visit you then once that's up. It's
And it's gonna be open house. I want people to see this thing. I mean, I've been building this collection for a long time. So
that's funny. When I think all us guys, when we have a creative outlet, we design our studios,
oh
we
yeah.
design like our influence room, our man cave, whatever you want to call it. For us, it would be comics. And honestly, in my head, I've always designed my studio, and I've always designed like my comic room. I've never thought of any other place in the house.
Oh yeah.
And my comic room was a solitary room with just a nice lazy boy chair in the center,
Yeah.
with a light next to me, and like a little end table.
Yeah, where you
And
put your
then
coffee.
and then the rest was just boxes and boxes, like filing cabinet box size
Yeah.
of comics. That's it. Some statues and whatever on the. But it was like I wasn't going to share the room with anyone. It was just me going in there alone, sitting in a nice lazy boy.
Yeah, this is my solace, man. This is heaven for me. Man, when I lived in Washington State, before I moved to Texas, I had a house. I rented this big house. I rented it originally because I was filming a show, so I was using it as like a set for the show. But it was like a 2,500 square foot house. It was 3 bedrooms, one big huge like extra family room den downstairs. But like I put a bed and a TV in my room. I put a bed in the second room upstairs for guests. I had my audio studio was the den downstairs. So that was the room that had everything in it. That was where my stuff was. And then the other room downstairs was my comic book room, same thing with a lazy boy in it and just all my racks of comics. And people would come in my house and it'd just be an empty living room. Literally no pictures on the wall, no, just hardwood floor and windows, and then the little dining nook, no table. And people are like, are you a serial killer? What is happening in this house? And I'm like, no, I just don't want people over here. And if I have a sofa, then you're going to sit down, you're going to want to hang out. It's like, and that's no good.
That's funny. I think we all think the same. Let me say hi to Mike Wilkie. Hey, Mike, thanks for tuning in. But yeah, no, that's great. I love that. I love when I hear these thoughts and I'm like, okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not alone. It's
yeah.
we all think the same here. It's actually funny. And not to sidetrack anymore, but earlier today I went to physical therapy. I hurt my shoulder, and it was my evaluation today for it.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor said, you hurt your shoulder in the way every man would hurt their shoulder. He's like, you did such a guy thing that you were bound to hurt your shoulder. But he goes, I don't know one guy who wouldn't do what you did.
What happened? What did you do?
Well, my wife and I bought what do you call it? A treadmill, like one of those foldable treadmills, like a walking pad. And it was delivered outside our apartment a few weeks ago. And I couldn't, I didn't want to leave it outside. So I brought it in thinking when my wife comes home, we'll carry it up because we live on a second story walk up. I said, we'll do it together. Well, it was blocking the door. It was blocking the mailboxes when I brought it in. So there was no way I could keep it downstairs. So I brought it up by myself. And as I was getting to this platform, I call it my Rice Krispie moment. There was like a pop and a snap.
In there.
And I screamed a little bit because it really hurt. And I kind of just got onto the platform and let it sit there for about 5-10 minutes before, with like one arm that's not working anymore, carried it up the next like 5-6 steps to get to the top level and brought it in. And I was like, yeah, so it's been about a good month since I've done that. At least there was no crackle. But yeah, no, but I was doing stuff anyway. I finally got to physical therapy and I had my evaluation today.
Yeah. So you're going to live though.
I'll live, and it's my drawing arm, so I have to take care of it.
Oh, damn. Yeah.
Anyway, dude, let's get into your comic, man, because I got to say the first issue was fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah.
I remember you sent me, I believe, a preview copy of it. And I really enjoyed it. I thought there was a lot of illustration I remember showing in it, especially the hospital scene. I was like really into how your artist drew certain aspects in the hospital. But yeah,
very detailed. Felipe Sobriera, my artist, he's really good at detail work. He's really good at making sure expressions, making sure characters have a different look. A lot of artists get into this same face thing where every character starts to look the same. He's really good at distinguishing characters from each other. And I mean, he blew me away. I mean, I saw his portfolio before I hired him, of course. But man, when the stuff he's doing in #2 for me, also there's a scene that I wrote in #2. When I wrote it, I'm like, and I didn't have anyone hired when I wrote it yet, and I'm like, good luck to whoever is getting this, because it's like it's a pretty, it's like an intense kind of like car chase type scene, in a sense, a little. And I'm like, this is going to be a shit show. This is going to be, who can someone draw this? And then he starts sending me pages of it when he got to it. And I'm like, he didn't even question it. He didn't even blink an eye, you know, and he just started throwing me these things that are just look phenomenal. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm going to show the Kickstarter page right now.
sure.
Just so we could have it up and people can see some artwork. Now, before we get into volume 2, can just for those who didn't see the first time you were on last year, and those who haven't, you should go back on my YouTube or Facebook and watch it, because it was a really fun discussion. But can you tell us a little bit about how you came up with the story and whatever parts of issue 1 you want to share?
Sure. Yeah. So the basic pitch is it's about a guy who wants to end his own life. So he decides to do it through vigilantism. On the surface, it's kind of a neo-noir crime thriller, but really it's a character piece about loss and trauma and the crazy things we do when we feel like we have nothing left to live for. And you know, the vigilante part is really just a delivery system to trick people into reading a much deeper story about someone's personal spiral into the depths of despair. But it's, yeah, I mean, I wanted to tell a story that really, I think, reflects on everyone and that everyone could relate to, of just that feeling of desperation, of having nothing left and feeling like you're at the end of the rope and not knowing where to turn and what to do, and the way that manifests in us sometimes. I mean, obviously putting on a Halloween mask and going out to fight crime is an extreme version of that, but I think that's a representation of how we all feel at times, and the extreme pressure and kind of madness that takes us to when we are truly feeling like we don't have anywhere else to turn.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting concept. Like it's you know, thought wise, it's just like heavy in the thoughts, and to consider, you know, and I'm not asking to pry into your life, but how, like, was this something that came to you when you were at a moment like this, and it was a way to get out of that mentality?
So not exactly, but I mean, yeah, to answer the question, frankly, it was, so in January of 2020, my best friend, another comedian who I just been my best friend for years, he was my opener for a long time. He took his own life.
Oh,
And it was, you know, it was a lot. I mean, I had to call his family. I had to call his wife he was separated from at the time, and you know, just kind of live in this moment, because since I was his best friend and had all the information and lived there and was like handling all this stuff, I was kind of reliving this moment of his death 30 times a day, you know, because someone was calling me asking for details or what's this, what's in it, you know, and it was just, it really was, I mean, I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. It was a lot to deal with. You know, I'm luckily pretty dead inside, so I was able, probably a little more equipped to handle it than a lot of people, but it certainly was like a challenging time. And then right after that, COVID happened.
yeah.
And, you know, a couple months later, end of March, start of, probably 3 months later, which certainly still very fresh, this whole thing with my friend, still very fresh. COVID happens. Life changes for everyone, you know. I mean, I don't care how you feel about it, scientifically, politically, you know, whatever, it doesn't matter. I think we can all agree that things were crazy, and it fundamentally changed a lot of people, and it absolutely ruined a lot of people's lives in many, many different ways, whether, you know, I mean, relationships, careers, financially. I mean, people just got addicted to, fell into addiction and things like that. I mean, just so many things that it really did to people, and broke. I just saw people breaking, and having no outlet for that. You can't even go out. You can't even see people. If someone dies, you can't even go to their funeral. Your kids are graduating from school, but you can't have a graduation. I mean, everything you can imagine, right? And it all kind of was like swimming in my head. And I'm just like, how does this make sense? How does this, what do people do in these scenarios? And I really was able to capture kind of lightning in a bottle with it. Because also we were having these really crazy moments of conflict between people and police was happening a lot across the country also. And the phrase suicide by cop kept kind of rolling through my head, right? Where you create an interaction with a police officer with the intent for him to kill you because, and then the phrase suicide by vigilantism popped into my head. And I was just like, oh, that's interesting. And I'm like, has that been done? I'm like, I don't think that's been done, and then I started kind of tying all these things together of a guy who wants to end his own life and why he would and what that would mean and why you would feel that way, and how this relates to other people, and how when you're in that moment of that desperation, sometimes feeling better actually makes you feel worse in the end, because these moments of better make the lows lower, so these moments of reprieve from the hardship of wanting to do something like take your own life is what makes those lows even lower, because you drop back down even further. So yeah, I just thought it was something that would resonate in the times, that people really just crazy broken times and crazy broken people.
Yeah. Wow.
That was a long-winded answer, but that's the
No, it's very interesting. I mean, I think a lot can relate. I mean, I know not everyone has lost friends in that way. I had a friend who passed away during COVID time, not through that form, but it's and honestly, to this day, it's still rough, because he was a guy I spoke to 4 to 5 times a week.
Yeah.
And and even though he was into comics and he made comics and he did all this stuff, we rarely, we hardly talked about comics. We talked about other stuff. And
Sure.
It's like a lot of it, we both love to cook. So I'll make up a recipe. I'll be like, oh, I should give him a call. He'd really be into it. You know what I mean? So like, you still think in those ways, and it's hard, you know. But yeah, no, and I think everybody, like you said, can relate to being at a low point for whatever reason. COVID showed those, the pandemic era showed those low points for people.
Yeah.
I
mean, I think people are still living with a lot of that trauma and don't even realize it. That's the thing.
I agree 100% with that. I know a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I think people just got used to this new status quo and the new way they feel and the new way they operate through life and interact with people, and it just intrinsically changed everyone. And I think people don't even realize how much it's still affecting them. And the idea for this story, I take an extreme approach with taking your own life, but the idea of the story is to let people know that like it's okay to not feel okay, and your reason is valid, right? Like it doesn't. It's one of the things we explore in this is why he wants to do this. At a certain point, we get into that a little bit, and kind of the driving point of it is that like everyone maybe doesn't have that extreme of a reaction in their life, but everyone does feel like I always say like the worst thing that ever happened to you is still the worst thing that ever happened to you, right? Like it
Yeah.
may, on a scale of 1 to 10 in general, it may only be a 5, but to you it's your 10 because it's the worst thing that happened to you, you
Yeah.
know? So you don't have like a frame of reference for anything worse. Does that make sense?
No, no, it makes perfect sense. You're talking to someone who is literally filled with medical issues,
Yeah.
and and talking about still recovering from COVID. I have medical stuff that has continued on through
Yeah.
that time that I am still dealing with from from uh, from the pandemic era. So it's I get it 100%. You're also talking to someone who, because of growing up with medical issues, has talked to therapists. I get the whole concept, and also it's, I mean, I'm lucky. I was just talking about this with the guy for physical therapy today. I said I'm one of the lucky ones. I got my art.
Yeah.
But if I don't have this arm, I don't have that anymore. That's what keeps me sane.
Yeah.
That's what keeps and I happen to have a knack for writing humor, which I think comes from all the, the pain or fear or whatever you want to call it that I have
Yeah.
growing up. Yeah, it's humor became an outlet for me. Um, and writing and drawing comics became an outlet for me.
Yeah.
They've always been my favorite storytelling medium. Because if I do a comic like The Wiz, I got 3, 4 panels, tell a joke, get in and out. I made someone laugh. Awesome. If I do a 20, 30 page comic, whatever it is, I take someone on a journey for those many pages.
Yeah.
And hopefully I've helped them escape. I've always said two things. Number one, when I do humor, I don't care if you're laughing with me or at me. As long as you laugh, I did my job.
Right.
And number two, um, I write, or I tend to write for the sick kid in the hospital who can't get out of the hospital bed, who is stuck. So whether I'm doing, it doesn't always have to be humor. It could be action, adventure, mystery, whatever I'm doing. I'm hopefully writing for someone who's going to be able to escape this from whatever problems they have,
Yeah.
even if it's 5 minutes. Um,
Yeah.
but that's kind of how I attack my storytelling.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've talked about this ad nauseum over the last 6 months. I feel like doing interviews, but it's something I really, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I enjoy talking about it because it's comic books is such an underrated medium because it's this medium that allows you to tell any story with you have an unlimited budget basically, essentially, as
Yeah,
long as you can get your artist to draw it.
yeah,
But beyond that, it's like, and you can tell really, really, really deep, important stories with the most interesting avatars, right?
yeah,
Like you can use a vehicle like a violent vigilante to tell a story that's really about depression and mental illness and loss and trauma. You can use those um, things as like a metaphor in ways that you can't in other mediums, or at
yeah.
least I don't think come across as well. And it's underrated. People just look at comic books and think superheroes. And you're like, yeah, that's a genre in comic books. Granted, it's not the medium. Granted,
Yeah.
it's the biggest genre in the medium. But
Well, in American comics, remember that.
sure, yeah,
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 American big, and that's what most people think about. Like I was talking with a guest a couple of weeks ago I had on here, and we were talking about like Hollywood. And I said, what people don't realize is a lot of Hollywood was founded on comics. Comics, you go back to the 30s, 40s, 50s of like newspaper comics. And Dick Tracy was one of the most popular things. They would make movie serials on that.
yeah,
The Phantom had it. Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, eventually got Superman and Batman and Captain Marvel. All these, they were going to comics to build these stories,
yeah,
you know? And now Hollywood's going back to it, and people aren't realizing that they're in the comics because it's not as readily available. You know, like when you look at comics in those days, they were in the newspapers, they were on the newsstands, you know, people were able to see them. Now there's specialty shops you got to go to buy the comics at,
Yeah,
or
so
conventions. So
yeah, they're not on a spinner rack next to your in your pharmacy section of a grocery store or something, you know.
Exactly. And when now you go into a store like Barnes and Nobles, and it's all manga mainly.
Yeah.
The graphic novel section is very small.
Oh yeah, especially
very
compared to the manga.
Yeah, and listen, I enjoy manga too. I read it, I enjoy it. But it's, you know, it's a different type of storytelling. And you know, and going back, one of my all-time, you can't see it here, but one of my all-time favorite books is Will Eisner's A Contract with God, which is nothing about superheroes.
Yeah.
And it's probably one of the best illustrated comics I've ever read. Very well written, tells a great history of different decades, you know. And Will, as an artist, it draws some of the most beautiful ugly people, and I could his stuff, like, that's what I've always said about his stuff. He draws the most beautifully ugly people out there, and because they're real, his characters look real, you know. And yeah, you could tell anything. I just wish people realize that it's more than just Superman and Spider-Man and
oh yeah
out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much stuff out there. I mean, you look at stuff like Brian K. Vaughan has done, like Why the Last Man, and this Paper Girls too. I mean, not to. I know we're not supposed to talk about Neil Gaiman anymore, but Sandman and stuff like that. It's just I mean, you even take some stuff that you want to talk about, you know, really interesting mix of genres. I mean, you know, people like The Max is one of my favorite series of all time.
Great series.
I mean, and when you look at it, especially in the time it came out, mid-early 90s, kind of like 95, I think. So like, you know, a couple years into Image Comics. Image Comics is all big guns, big muscles, big tits. And then this like really weird art style, kind of abstract Sam Keith book comes out. The guy looks like a superhero, but it's not a hero thing. And you read it, and I mean, I read it when it first came out, and I was like, I don't really know, this is weird, you know. But I was probably, I don't know, 15, 13, something like that. And then I read it a couple years later, and I was like, probably 17, 18. I read the trade paperbacks, and I was just like, oh shit, like this book is just about like PTSD and trauma and schizophrenia and trauma bonding between people who have shared experiences of trauma, and like just this. It's a crazy ride of psychology in metaphors, and it's like this is a symphony. But you know, even someone who understood art a little bit better would probably look at it and dismiss it pretty quickly, because it's, you know, a comic book, the art's kind of weird, characters don't look like anatomically correct. But like, no, if you read this and really dig into this, like, you are going to be blown away by the story that Sam Keith and William Messner Loebs are telling in this book.
Yeah, I can see actually now when you're talking about how that really was a psychological book, how that it kind of influenced the type of stuff that you like, that would bring you to something like Kill Stan, you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's The Max was a pivotal book for me. I mean, absolutely one of the cornerstones of comic books as far as genre breaking and groundbreaking for me in the way I look at writing comic books and approach how you would tell a story and create a narrative.
Yeah. Wow. I'm just thinking how far we went away from
yeah.
But hold on. Excuse me. But listen, no, it's okay. Like I said in the beginning, you're very knowledgeable about comics, and you last time you were here was a very interesting conversation. I just enjoyed chatting. So
Yeah, yeah, man, I'm open for anything. Let's go.
yeah, no, it's great. Totally. But let's get back on Kill Stan.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little, or how much can you tell us about book one? Because I know you don't want to give it all away, so people maybe
Yeah.
should pick up a copy.
Yeah, I mean, so book one, we meet Stan. He's not long into this vigilante thing, and he kind of gets, so he ends up in possession of an object which the local gang wants back. He kind of accidentally ends up in possession of it, and they want it. They want it back, and that kind of propels the not the plot, because that's not really the plot, like I said, but that propels that is the vehicle which the plot rides in. Yeah, that's the lime scooter which the plot is riding to the finish line. So yeah, and there's kind of a big cliffhanger at the end of number one. So if you've read number one, there's a big what the hell just happened, and might make you wonder what number two and the rest of the series might actually hold, considering the end of number one. So, but some of this is told out of order. The narrative's a little jumbled for reasons. But yeah, Stan lives in a part of town they call the Dark Side. We introduce a couple police officers, a couple detectives, Officer Monroe, who is kind of the last good cop in a bad city, who has an interaction with Stan also, and becomes a pivotal character in this whole book too.
Oh, that's really I mean, listen, it's a fun story. I want to show some of the artwork here.
Yeah.
And I can click on this to jump to, or yeah. So this is from this is 5 pages from issue 2.
Yep.
So is the artist the same artist from the first book?
Yeah, Felipe's doing the whole series.
Okay, and how many books are planned for the series?
10.
10? Okay.
10. So we're about to start on number 3 in the next couple weeks here.
Awesome. I love this already,
So this is, if you look at page 1 here, this is actually really a lot of the kind of that neo-noir inspired feel. And actually, I'm going to send something to you here in the chat, because I want you to compare this. I'm going to send you the link to the first Kickstarter, and if you look at that and pull that up on another tab or something,
yep,
you can go down to the preview there and then look at the first page. Now go back and look at the first page for number 2. So if you see, it's this 4-panel narrative with heavy blues and blacks going back and forth.
Yeah.
And that is like a consistent theme I wanted to open each book with, where we have these blues and blacks, which are, think of, really impactful colors, drives home that noir feel. The coloring is really important in this book. It does a lot of the work. And that's intentional. I really worked with my colorist to have specific coloring done in this book. But I wanted each to open with a certain, like a narration from a character, and it's going to be a consistent theme throughout the 10 issues. And then it jumps to, the action. where we've got, and that's actually the same second page as number 1.
I was going to say that reminds me a lot.
It's the exact same page, because we want to let you know that we're slingshotting back to that where we're at in the story. So we didn't forget that that was the opening of number 1, despite what the journey we went through on number 1.
Now, is this the same? This isn't the same, right? As
That's different. Yep. It's going to be that's the same moment as this.
okay. Yeah.
But it's that's kind of, we're jumping back to that. So we're back here now with him in the hospital.
This is great. I love this expression right here.
What's that?
I love the expression. I'm sorry.
Oh, on the doctor's face?
On doctor's face.
Yeah.
But I like the little details that your artist does here with even just on the shoe here, showing the sole here, the grip on there.
Yep.
Nice. This is a great arc of the body jerking here.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So, and then if you notice too, we intentionally have Stan with a little richer color and more saturation on his color tones to have him pop in this. That's all intentional, again, to really, I can't drive home how important the coloring is on this book. So.
I'm noticing, and I don't know if I noticed this in the first time, but he's got a robotic arm, which is
yes. So he's got like that's the object that he accidentally comes in possession of, that the gang wants back.
Okay.
He didn't ask for it. It just happens to he happens to get in possession of it, and they want it back.
Wow, that's a nice piece here too. Is he drawing traditionally or digitally?
Traditionally.
Wow.
Yeah. And then this last page is just phenomenal.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, this was one of my favorite pieces. And I'm just looking at how I'm looking at the perspective, honestly, on the buildings. I hate drawing perspective. I hate drawing backgrounds. It's one of the reasons I like to do fantasy art. I can do all nature, and you can kind of fudge around with things. You don't have to do a lot, but this is
I mean, I had a real specific, because I'm very specific with these panels, the way I want. I mean, I break them down. Each panel, these are the shape of the panel, the sizes, where they go, what I want in it, where the character is, if it's the point of view, or if this character's on the left or the right, whatever. And Felipe has just been amazing at really nailing everything. I mean, this perspective of Stan falling right now is just, I mean, that view looks just perfect. The road beneath, the way the buildings arc. I mean, just the shards of glass. It's really, really amazing.
Yeah. I'm really enjoying it. And I know I told you this last time, and I know you're talking about how important the color is. I'm colorblind. I don't notice the like.
Oh yeah.
Stuff. But no, I mean, listen, it's okay. But what I'm noticing is how, and this is something, and I don't know. Again, this goes to my colorblind, because I pick up I can pick up patterns and things pretty well. So I see certain aspects of how the coloring is that other people wouldn't naturally pick up on. And I'm noticing just on the buildings and the sidewalk, because that's why I asked if he was doing this traditionally or digitally, because obviously this is digitally colored. but there's certain aspects of it where I'm just like, I'm picking up on certain ways the shadows are falling,
Mm-hmm.
like over here on this building here, but it kind of fades away as you get, you know, it doesn't really happen on these buildings here. Like this, it just really makes the rest of everything stand out, you know.
Yeah.
But it's the shadows I'm seeing and how things are going on. It's just this is just amazing. Just
Yeah,
amazing.
he's just doing great work. So
This is fantastic here. And then this is the cover. This is to Kill Stan 1.
yeah, those are the covers for number 1, and then the cover options for number 2, and yeah.
Yeah, these are really, really nice. I kind of like the main covers, just kind of the black and red.
Yep.
Just it's I mean, they're all nice. I'm just saying the black and red. There's just something about it that I don't really makes the really gives me the story. You know.
Yeah, that's so. I do all the main cover for number 1 and all the covers for number 2 I did. But yeah, the main covers are all going to be that red and black, like stark image, just kind of not super kind of abstract, not real detailed. But you get some shading, like if you on number 2, you can see there's some shading around on the character, but it's not. And I don't even think that's the finished art. I think it's a little different than that it ended up at. But yeah, they're all going to be that kind of style of art for the main covers.
Yeah.
So, and then we're doing some sort of different cover for number 2, some sort of variant, and then some sort of kind of bloody variant edition. We did a foil for number 1. Number 2 isn't a foil, but we may do some sort of foil edition on the A cover again when we go to print for retail, as opposed to the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
But yeah, we want to do some fun, different cover stuff. So I got a guy doing a cover for number 3 that he sent me the final art. It looks killer. I'm doing like a Golden Age homage cover that I did for one of the future issues, and just random stuff for the B cover as a variant.
Yeah, no, these are great. I like, and so when you're saying you're doing the artwork on these too, then? Or?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. I like that a lot. I like the art.
Yeah, I mean, I want it to be kind of like a street art graffiti style on that particular cover.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
It's very, very nice.
Because there's that does tie in to later in the story. There's that does tie into something in the story later that'll make a little more sense.
Yeah. And how many pages is the story?
The first issue is 26. The second issue is 24. Every issue's somewhere between 24 and 32 pages. Okay. I didn't really hamstring myself into a certain number. I just wanted to tell the best story I could tell. If it took me 24 and I felt like I was done, great. If I needed more, I would do a couple more. I mean, at the end of the day, it's coming out of my pocket to print it and pay the artist. I'd rather pay for a couple more pages and make sure it's the best story I can do than try and edit a couple pages out just because I have to hit 24.
Yeah, I get you. And that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm publishing it. I don't have an editor up my ass.
But let me ask, do you have someone who edits, or are you your own editor?
I'm doing it all. I will say this, like I used to write comedy for a website.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in some writers' rooms for some shows and film stuff, and like uh, editors are really old. They just have to put their stink on something. If they don't edit it somehow, then they can't justify their job, you
Yeah.
know? And usually they're just fucking up what you're doing because they have to like feel like they did something. I mean, I actually quit one of my writing gigs. I used to be a columnist for this comedy website, and I quit because I couldn't deal with the editor anymore because he kept changing my columns and like making things that were jokes into not jokes because he would change a couple words around. I'm like, that's not a joke anymore. You just eliminated the joke. You're a comedy uh, column editor, and all you're doing is editing out the jokes. So the I mean, like I have my girlfriend reads a script and I make sure I'm like, if there's any grammatical errors or if something doesn't make sense to her, she'll definitely tell me. But other than that, I'm like, I know the story I'm trying to tell. I know how to get it out. I do a lot of revisions. I write it, let it breathe a little, go back later, look at it again with fresh eyes, and do that a couple times. And
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Because I do the same thing. I have my wife that I bounce all my ideas off of, and if hopefully she likes them or whatever, she'll be honest with me.
sure,
And I do have one or two friends that I can run stuff by, but I'd never use an official editor.
yeah,
I think if I'm working for myself, it's my story. It should really flow the way I want it to flow. Um, but I like to have a couple of eyes on it just to know it makes sense.
yeah,
And um, I'm not writing something that isn't plot holy, And I'm usually very good. Listen, I taught storytelling for almost 20 years. I consider myself a very good storyteller. Um, and one of the things I was always good at was finding the holes in
mm-hmm.
people's stories and catching, oh, well, or just understanding that, hey, you're ripping off whatever. It's a little too much of a rip off, like catching things. I was very good at things like that. And my students hated me for it. I will.
Good job, man.
Yeah, but I always help make their stories better. That I feel I could do it for myself.
Yeah.
But sometimes when I write, or when you write, you're writing in your own head. You're writing for yourself, and if you don't bounce it off someone,
Yeah, there is that fear that you write something and you're like, you're writing it, it's in your head, so it makes sense to you.
Yeah.
But I think part of, I've just written so much in so many different forums, even like comedy is like that, like stand-up comedy. There's jokes you write and then you realize, oh, that wasn't funny because they didn't know what I was talking about. Like you just, I've taught so many comedy classes where it's like you're teaching structure of a joke, and it's like premise. You need to make a clear and concise premise. And there's just, so like, I mean, I really comb over these things to make sure. And that's why I step away and I'll write a couple other things, that I kind of drift back to it to look at it with fresh eyes. And I'm always like, oh, okay, I need to wait this and this. And I mean, I fine tooth comb for plot holes to make sure it all makes sense. And, I've got my artist and my colorist. My colorist is also my letterer. So, okay. They both are looking at it and reading it. So if anything stands out to them, they let me know and we can figure it out. But yeah, it's, I don't, no thanks on an editor.
It's okay. Listen, I feel the same way. I mean, yeah. I just do it because I've published a few books in the past where I've had mistakes, whether it was grammatical or I put the balloons in the wrong spot, and because I
Yeah.
didn't have someone checking. So it's really more of just double checking
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
haven't messed up.
Yeah. Yeah. That stuff, and again, like I go through it, the letter, or, he's going through it. My girlfriend will take a look at it to make sure that, yeah, that kind of stuff I'm there for. Content, I'm good. The nuts and bolts stuff, like that stuff we can look at.
Yeah. So let's take a look over here at some of the rewards for backing. So, excuse me again. So we'll start with some digital copies here. $8 for issue 2.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. But if you didn't get one, you can get 1 and 2 for $12
Mm-hmm.
digitally, which is fantastic. And then going into the physical copy for 20, free shipping.
Free shipping, baby. Everyone likes something free
In the U.S. Got to make sure people know that these days, right?
Yeah.
And then 25, and this is what physical. Oh, signed. Okay.
Yeah.
This one's signed. Nice. So we go down here. The physical copy signed plus comedy special. What's this? Oh, that's your a digital copy of your 1 hour special, not your cup of tea.
Yep. Digital download of the video of the whole hour.
Nice. So the books are all basically ready to go. You're looking at delivering the digital copies in April and the physicals by March.
Yeah, or is it digitals by April, physicals by?
That's what estimated delivery. Oh, that's a physical. Hold on.
Yeah,
digital. It says. Oh no, this digital. I'm sorry. 1 and 2 March. So
yeah, we could get the digital copy. We'll be able to send out. Probably. I would imagine by like March 10th, around there, I would have the digital copy ready to go. The physical copies are probably going to be those people should get in their hands end of March, start of April.
Okay.
We're going to be going to print. I mean, the colorist has the last few pages, last 10 pages in his hands. So that'll take probably 2 weeks to do, and then I'll send it to the printer right away. About 2-3 weeks to get it back. So yeah, we're probably end of March, start of April to get physical copies in people's hands.
All right. No, that's great. I mean, listen, either way, it's still a quick turnaround. It's that, which is great. I've backed some Kickstarters, and I didn't realize when I backed it, I didn't read when the estimated delivery. It says like November of 2025, and I'm like, I backed it in like November of 2024, and I'm like, I didn't realize it was going to be a whole year turnaround, and I'm like, okay. Like I backed something like 6 months ago, and I just saw that they just got their copies from the printer, and things are going out within the next week or so. And I'm like, oh, that's great. But again, it's still a long turnaround time.
Yeah. My goal with the workflow on these is for the book to be done right around the time the Kickstarter is done. So I can send them right to the printer basically around the day the Kickstarter ends, and my printer gets them back to me in about 2 weeks or so. And have books out real fast.
No, that's great. And I mean, look, 30 for physical copy of 1 and 2, and then 50 for variant copy plus the signed with the comedy special. I mean,
so the variant set that gets you cover A and B, the main cover and the variant. So that gives you 2 copies. And then the 3-pack gets you all 3 of the covers for number 2. That bloody edition on number 2, though, we are only printing 25 of those. So that's a limited edition. We're doing 25. That's it. When they're gone, they're gone. So.
All right. Oh, so, okay. So this you could only get with the variant set then.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. So then the ultimate, the 6 books. So this is all 3 of 1 and all 3 of 2.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, the comedy and yeah, and this is all signed. So these are great. And then the variant set for 800, which is basically all the.
That's also a live. That is a live comedy show. I will come to your house. Date TBD. We will figure something out. I don't. You don't just get to tell me a date, but we will. We'll work out a date, and I will come to your house and do a 1-hour comedy show for you and your friends live.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And you're allowing this one backer. No, that is awesome. Yeah, I like that.
No one's bit yet, but I figured go crazy for one, and if someone does, good.
Why not? And only in the United States.
Yes. Also, yeah, I'm not going to Jerkistan or wherever the hell you are.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, it turns out it's beautiful in Gaza this time of year.
Hold on. That's my problem with the infection. I cough when I start laughing. Oh man. I was a little nervous with you coming on tonight.
I'll try to keep it scaled down.
But yeah, no, listen, this is a great I just love this picture. But this is a great Kickstarter. The backing rewards, everything. It's fantastic. The story is awesome. Artwork is gorgeous. I loved talking to you about kind of like the meaning behind it, because it's a nice way to tell a story. You're going back to like almost like how you were talking about the Max, how the Max was a whole thing about, it was a whole psychological story, but it was kind of this dude in a superhero suit, that wasn't really a superhero.
Yeah, just schizophrenic homeless dude.
It was, listen, that was, I remember I read like 1 or 2 issues of the Max when it first came out, whatever I was able to get. And then it was one of those things you forget about, but you like see it in Wizard or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you watch the MTV cartoon and it's like, you need to go back and read the Max.
Yeah.
So you go back and you find like a trade, or you find the issues and you read it. And it's like, I don't remember. And you got to correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been a while, but I'm like, that cartoon did not do the book justice.
No, not at all. The cartoon was just weird, which was fine. Like the cartoon has like a entertainment value to it, but I don't think even the people doing the cartoon understood the source material, like what they were really doing. And I've heard rumors forever about people talking about people trying to make it into a movie. And like, that would be a disaster. You cannot cram that into, 2 hours and 20 minutes. Maybe like, realistically, a cartoon would have been the best format to tell it in, but you need 40 episodes, right? Yeah. Like you need 40 episodes, like you had 40, or I think like 36 issues or something like that to tell, and like just do an episode an issue. And, but at that point too, it's like, I don't know. Do you need the cartoon? You got the comic book. Why do you need to make it move? You just
I feel that way about a lot of comic book movies and TV shows, but like, and I'm not going to go into it. People have heard me bitch and complain. And as I've said many times, I'm not the target audience, so I don't get upset.
Sure.
Like I used to, but what it is for me is, um, I think because comics are a serialized storytelling method, they should be serialized in TV series and not 2 hour, 2.5 hour films.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
could, maybe put a nice film together after you've done a season, of, whatever, Superman or whatever. You got a whole season, and now maybe you do a group movie of 2 hours, bringing a couple of shows in a crossover together.
yeah,
But I don't think we should be seeing these movies. Like when I was going back and talking about how Hollywood started on these superhero or just comics in general, they were movie serials.
yeah,
They were told in, the 15-20 minute pieces and then collected into one giant movie. So you were coming back each week for 14 weeks or whatever it was to
yeah,
get 20 minutes, and then you get a full Lone Ranger, and you get a full, whatever it was, Buck Rogers and stuff. And I'm like, even back then they understood the serialness
yeah.
of that type of storytelling.
Well, that's why like the Daredevil show was so good
And I just
because
have, by the way, I'm having my wife watch that right now because
oh
the new one's coming out. I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
she hasn't seen it. I'm like, just go and watch it.
Oh man, I just had my girlfriend watch it a couple months ago. She got obsessed with it. She loved it. So she can't wait for the new season. But yeah, I mean, it's like it works because they did it right in a show format that can breathe. Um, when you're stuck in trying to hit. Also, you have to when you're making that big budget movie. You're the part of the problem is that you have to make it so it works for everyone because it's got to go to China. You got to be let kids watch it. You got to old people have to understand. You have to make it palatable for everyone, which means it doesn't have an actual voice, which means it's nothing. Not that some of the Marvel movies aren't good or have entertainment value or I don't enjoy
Yeah.
them, but none of them have like a hard line take. None of them are like a real artistic choice. They just like, how do we make this as down the middle, won't rock the boat at all type of film that everyone will go see, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully they're doing it with some stuff now. Um,
I
I'm
think uh well, Logan showed them they could do an R-rated movie, and then the new Deadpool Wolverine really pushed them. And I think that maybe opened the door for Disney to be like, because they're just soulless Anunnaki lizard people that only want money anyway. So they have no moral stance. They're like, listen, if an R-rated movie is what makes us $1 billion, let's fucking go. So you know, if so I think it might have opened the door for them to take a little bit different look at how they put these movies out and what the content they do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it just on that topic, I'm one of those people. I don't think superhero movies should be rated R. I don't think they should have as many curses or making superhero curses. No, what do we got? He says careful. Um, it's yeah. I think you got to be, and that's what I think you need to be with these type, because superheroes should be for everybody. Now, I'm not going to say you can't have a character like Wolverine be an R-rated film.
Yeah.
You know, his character lends himself to that, but at the same time, he's also one of those characters that kids love. So why make something to alienate part of the audience that like parents now can't take their kid to? So that's kind of how I feel on the topic. Like there are characters out there that if I see it, I'm like, well, they're not going to be able to do this without a good R rating.
Yeah.
But I think maybe like a PG 13ish type of rating would be good for everybody.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
it,
you don't have to go hard R, but
yeah,
like, if you make like a Punisher movie,
Mhm.
Like that's when they were talking about bringing like John Bernthal back to do Punisher stuff. He's like, I'm not doing it if you're going to Disneyfy it, like
Yeah.
and because why would you? It wouldn't make sense. Or like, I just think it opens up that you don't have to necessarily do an R rating,
Mhm.
but what it does is that does open up the ability to take us to make a creative choice in a movie and let it have a voice, because you can do something besides just shoot down the middle, right? Like I've said for years, I think one of the most interesting and ballsy things that Marvel could do is, they'll never do it, but if they actually took like an X-Men movie and did the Brood saga and made it like a horror, did it like a horror angle where it's like Alien meets X-Men and they're in space and trapped in space and they're fighting the like what an interesting. Or it's like, no, let's just have them fight Magneto for the 8th time in a movie, because it's like, who cares? Like,
Yeah.
why do it again? Let's do something unique. Or like, it just, I think it opens up their ability to have an angle and a voice that's different than just, hey, this is cookie cutter. We've color, cut paint by
Yeah. Yeah.
numbers, movie, Marvel movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I get your point 100%. Um, and that just might be me how I attack storytelling. I want to see it more open to everybody.
Yeah.
But listen, I've read comics, and I've read all types of comics. You know that I understand. Not every story can be told in a family friendly version.
Yeah.
You know, I you look at the one that always comes to mind, because I remember reading it at like 10, 11 years old, was Teen Titans Judas Contract.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that is not something I should have been reading at that age. But when you go back and reread it in high school, and you're like 17, 18 years old, and now you like understand the world a little more and the impact of that. I'm like they made an animated version of it.
Yeah.
I think it was R rated. Um,
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I
I'd have to
watched.
go back and look on Max. I think it's on Max.
Yeah,
Um,
it is.
but yeah, it's I mean, I wasn't 100% into it. I like the original comic better, and it's those things I go back to. The books are
Yeah.
better.
Yeah,
It's always better. So
yeah, I just think it allows for more room,
yeah,
and it doesn't mean that like you have to go not family friendly on everything. It just
yeah,
allows you room to do, because like if you look at the Marvel universe, for instance, like there's Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, and
yeah,
there's Spider Boy, and there's Kamala Khan, and then there's the Punisher, and there's Daredevil, and there's like these Deadpool. There's like these darker characters. There's everything in between. So if instead of making every movie like it's Iron Man, let's make some movies like it's Punisher and some movies like it's
yeah,
Devil, Dinosaur, and Moon Girl, and
yeah,
everything in between. Because you can really, then you have this gamut of storytelling devices you can use and really make a substantial film, and like
yeah,
I said, instead of just going like, and then they do this, and then they do this, and then they fight the big blue light from the sky at the end, and then we give you
yeah.
a commercial for the next movie coming out in the credits. you know
No, I get it. I 100% get it. And you talking about the Punisher just makes me want a good Punisher. Like I keep telling people, like, my favorite films are, I'll go back to like all the 80s blow 'em up movies. I want to see
Mhm.
things like, Rambo and
Oh yeah.
all that's like, I'll sit and watch any type of movie like that over and over and over
Yeah,
again.
Predator is a heavy rotation
Yeah.
film for me.
Yeah. 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 I haven't watched that one in a couple of years, but I've been wanting to pull it out again and check it out. I remember really loving that as a kid. And, And last time I watched it, it's probably been a good 10+ years for me.
Oh man, that's a probably once a year movie for me. Uh,
See, for First Blood is like maybe 6 times a year I watch that film.
that's a great one.
I love I might even change that poster to a First Blood poster one day. I was just looking it up about, what posters I can change to.
Yeah.
And my dream poster, which is hard to get right now, is the 1990s Phantom movie poster, the Slam Evil
Oh,
with Billy Zane.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's like the dream poster. It's just hard to get.
Oh, that's so
Um,
funny.
but I was looking up. I'm like, oh, what about Rambo? What about First Blood? What about? Um, I didn't even think Predator. That was good. I was a Commando. Like I loved anything that Schwarzenegger and Stallone did.
Yeah,
Those were my guys. Chuck Norris back then. Those cheesy American ninja movies. Like love all those things.
yeah, man. There's great stuff. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, God, yeah. That's just what I grew up on. So,
Yeah.
I was a big. I don't know how many times I watched like The Running Man as a kid.
Love the
Or
Running Man.
yeah, I mean, great stuff.
Yeah, all that. Yeah. Listen, I'm sure we're about to hit another topic, but we should we should wrap up. I know you got to get up early, and I gotta save this voice here.
Yeah,
So, listen, thank you for coming on. I really enjoyed chatting. Next time, I hope not to have a sinus infection going on here. But yeah, listen, to the audience. You know what I didn't do? I didn't even put the Kickstarter in the. I can't believe I didn't do it in the comments. So let me put that in right now.
yeah,
You guys, please go to it. You're only what, like 500 away from
yeah.
about like just a little over 500 away, and 6 days to go. You guys could totally put them over. Yeah, let's make this happen. This is such a good story. Artwork is gorgeous. Message is in there, and definitely a book I think you guys want. And yeah.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, anything you wanna say?
Yeah, guys. If you can go to the Kickstarter for number one is still up. It's long past. I think there's some like like late pledge stuff you can do. Don't buy anything on that. If you want to buy, if you want number one, just go through the second Kickstarter or hit me up directly, and I'll direct to consumer sales a lot. So, but what I was gonna say is on number one, the Kickstarter for it has a 5-page preview of number one, so you can see some of how that book opens up. And then we've got a trailer on there. You can watch the trailer for number one. On the Kickstarter for number two, there's a second trailer we did, and also a 5-page preview of number two. If you like comic books, you'll love this book. I mean, this isn't with running the risk of sounding like I'm patting myself on the back. A lot of comic book creators, indie creators, and readers who read this book in the last few months told me it was their favorite book they read all year, that it's just absolutely get them in the head of the character. They can't wait for number two. It's just everything about it was great. Someone even said it's as good as an Ed Brubaker comic book, which is about the highest praise I can get, because I do love me some Ed Brubaker. I don't think it's that good, but I'm also a huge Ed Brubaker fan. That is something I aspire to. But if you like character-driven stories, if you like kind of crime noir, or just, really just it's story I think everyone can relate to, check it out. And follow me on Instagram at inferno.earth or Inferno Comics on Facebook. We're trying to build that Instagram. It helps a lot to get follows. We're getting into bigger conventions, and they do look at our following when we try to get in. So that helps a ton. And if you want to buy anything after the Kickstarter, you can hit me up on Instagram. We do direct to consumer sales, like I said. And follow me at deece.comedy for all my comedy stuff too. I'll be on tour somewhere near you probably soon. If not, throw me a bag of money or bitcoins and I'll come to you and make you laugh. So
Yeah, you can even get that on as a reward. So yeah, go check that out. All right, guys. So with that, I'm gonna wrap up. Thank you for coming on. Had a great time.
yeah, thanks for having me.
I hope I hope to see you soon when 3 is ready.
Yes.
And for my audience, I know I said on my Instagram reel today that I was going to make some announcements, but I'm going to do that this Saturday. I think I'm going to do a short stream and talk about some announcements for some comic stuff I'm doing. More than likely Saturday, possibly Sunday, but I want to go Saturday. So just watch for my announcement there. All right, and with that, I will see you all next week with another guest. All right, bye guys.
Thanks, guys.